Okay, is it recording? Here we go. This is some things I've written down. This is part 4, the aftermath and my speculation, and these are the truth. As a child, as best, I swear to God, as best I remember. Chapter 4, Ted Bundy Ride. Use computer. Speculation. I said how the young man transformed in the rearview mirror. There was extreme anger. His eyebrows seemed to come together in one brow across his forehead. His eyes were black. They were vacant of humanity. He did come back. At Harlow and Blanding, and Julia, who did not talk at first, did become, I knew somewhere deep inside I needed to talk to him. I needed to get him back from wherever he'd gone. The gun was silver. It looked like a Model 17 or Model 21 Smith & Wesson revolver. That's what it looked like to me. There was an odor in the vehicle. But anyway, I'm not going to go on all that. Okay, Julia continued to talk to him through the back door passenger side. I had gotten out, God bless, and I stood to the rear passenger side at the tire. At a point, Julia wanted something to ride on, I believe, and I think I handed her my autograph book from 6th grade, which I may have taken with me because it was just a few days after we got out of 6th grade, and I knew that I wanted to fill that book up, and there are 2 pages missing. A white page and a pale blue page are missing from that book. 2x3 piece of paper was handed to Bundy. If Julia did give her phone number to him before he took off, I will describe the situation as best I can remember truthfully in the name of God. Before man, court, and God. I remember thinking, I hope he doesn't come back. Also, I think Julia asked that we be dropped off there at the Texaco station in front of the 7-Eleven. Either way, we had stretches of road ahead, a piece of Harlow, whatever road, Sage or whatever, and then Rindale, Sudbury, Aldington, and Ortland. There were stretches of roadway ahead. So, I just hoped he kept on going because he did turn the vehicle around and head up Blanding or south on Blanding or north on Blanding, actually. I remember that thinking, well, he's gone. Good, you know. And he seemed to need to go somewhere. About 1960, I met Julia. I was 6. My little friend Rebecca lived next door. They were the Weisses, Sam Sr., Sam Jr., and Sue and little Rebecca. Our moms were friends, and once or twice a week they would meet for coffee clutches and lemon bars. We, Rebecca and I, went to the white concrete house with black shutters next door to Rebecca's home. It was Tudor. Julia sat outside playing with Mexican jumping beads and said she was from Corpus Christi, Texas. That's all I remember. Maybe the yard was a little overgrown because there were yellow buttercups growing. I had friends on both blocks. Since Julia and I were the same age, we often went to the same schools. I didn't think we played right away, but later, since school and classes had begun, we socialized. We'd walk to various schools together due to overcrowding. I went to Cedar Hills Church, Cedar Hills again, Lakeshore Presbyterian, and finally Stonewall Jackson, 6th grade. The more kids, the more classrooms. In my early teens and late prepubescence, I remember Barbara, the middle sister. There were 3 sisters. Barbara was the middle sister. These are pseudonyms. Who most wanted normalcy and took us often in the Valiant to Willow Branch Library. You see, Julia's parents were divorcing and had separate maintenance. When we were 12, Barbara was about 16. The oldest sister, Cece, worked for Southern Bell. She most resembled the mom, Cecilia we'll call her. The Bell Company was on Monroe Street in Jacksonville. Cecilia was a hostess in the heart of Jacksonville, a motel hotel downtown. She bore a remarkable resemblance to Elizabeth Taylor. She wore styles and clothes that emulated Taylor, i.e. polka dot stripes, fake fur, Eisenhower jackets, and leotards in the day. Can you imagine? It was kind of like the Kardashians back in the day. And she also put a birthmark on her cheek so she could, it was a draw to the hostess. She was an organ player. She played jazz organ. Back then, you had a guy named Rich who would do imitations of President Nixon and various, different people, Kirk Douglas, and he would imitate them. That was a thing in the early 60s through maybe the first part of the 70s. And since Cecilia looked so much like Liz Taylor, it was, she would emulate her. There were guinea pigs. They bred German shepherds for a while that were supposedly related to Rin Tin Tin. Everyone thought Cecilia was as a gay divorcee. She seemed a little bit off. The household was like the Kardashians long before there was Kardashians. A pile of clean clothes here and a pile of dirty clothes there. There was Drambuie. English ivy was attempted to grow on the garage wall. There was a gramophone. There was an armoire that was too big in the living room. Sadly, Mom and Susu let it drop that Cecilia had electric shock therapy for depression. One time, Barbara, the middle sister's boyfriend, treated her mean as we got out of a car, and I said, "Oh, what a queer." I was 14 in the 1960s. I had no idea. I could have said, "Oh, what a bastard," but that seemed too strong. So I said, "Oh, what a queer." But, okay, I didn't have a clue. Just a curse word to the guy that I thought was being very rude. Well, a person, a Mrs. Brown, began to call my mom about my mouth, and we never talk about the boyfriends. I knew it was Julia's mom, Cecilia. As I got older after the ride and a few more interactions with Julia over the years, I did see her from time to time, but I had other friends and acquaintances. There was no more twirling. There was no more choir at the BAP. And she went out and pulled herself up by the bootstraps and became, each of the daughters did. And I'm sure, that it was wonderful in the household, but to me, it seemed a little bit off. Okay. Oh, and I found this movie, my God. This is for Leslie Parmenter. I found a movie, and it's called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It premiered in Hollywood on June 21st, 1966. June 23rd, 2 women were beat to death in Queen Anne in Seattle. Lonnie Trimble and Wick or something, I think their names are. One survived, one was demised, and they were beat to death with a piece of lumber wood they found at that time. Now, what do you call it? Oh, what's the movie called? The trailer. The trailers were out. It was an extremely controversial, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. It was an extremely controversial movie because curse words were used. There was a lot of sexual connotation. It was very dark noir. It was I wouldn't watch it. It's not my kind of thing. It was a middle-class professor, and his wife was a daughter of the college president in some New England, like an Ivy League school, Princeton or something. And her husband was a professor, and he wore them glasses like Bundy wore. And I said, what would happen if on the West Coast he had a woman that he thought looked like Elizabeth Taylor, and on the East Coast he ran into a mother who literally looked like Elizabeth Taylor, and he also listened to radio shows, and there was a lot of controversy. This was like when George Carlin said the 3 curse words in the 1970s. This predated it. It changed the way movies were rated. It was a big controversy. Up to then, it was Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. And now you have this macabre breakdown. Oh, and they had an imitation son. The couple never had birth. And they had fantasized about a son who was beginning to drive. And George, after the end of the play, there's 3 acts, he tells his wife, Martha, Richard Burton's telling Elizabeth Taylor, it's they acted well, but it's not a kind of movie that I would not have liked. It's grotesque, real. It is. But anyway, he tells her, our fantasy child has died in a car wreck with his driver's permit in his pocket. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Now, Bundy knew that he was like the outcast. He was not one of them. He knew that he was from a different, I said, what would that have done? And what if he ran in to this family in Jacksonville whose mother emulated Elizabeth Taylor, whose oldest daughter looked like a young Elizabeth Taylor to some extent, and long blonde hair, burning her bra up in New Jersey. You tell me. I don't know. I can see why I would. I don't know what happened. I mean, honest to God, I don't know what happened after the ride. The phone number's a phone number, you know. I don't know what to do with that. If it was me and I might have given my phone number a little bit off. But then again, if it was June 5th, he wasn't doing Stanford till the 25th. So that's 20 days. He could have worked 2 more weeks at Confederate Point building the subdivision, getting some money. I mean, he had the gun. He could have picked us off. I don't know what would have happened. Something happened to Sylvia Mock, by the way, and her mom wouldn't let her walk to that school anymore. I don't know. Okay, bye-bye.